Hello, my name is Gretchen. I am from Left Right Labs, and this video is to show you how to set up your processes with Google Docs and with Teamwork. The overview for this is we went through the book Work the System by Sam Carpenter. I will drop the link in a document for you at the end of this video. But this book basically taught us how to set up our systems in a proper way so that anybody could come in and do things exactly the way we want them to. For example, if we hire a contractor and we want our about pages set up a certain way, that the contractor would know exactly what tools we use, what plugins, how we code, and what our expectations are for that particular process. So in doing all of this, we had to go through every single process that we do and start building out how we do it, write it down, record it, review it, make sure everything works. So this book kind of put us on that track, so I will be linking to that. The first thing I'll talk about is the tools that we use to implement. First of all, we used Google Docs, free, of course, and we use a program called Teamwork, although this system can really be set up with just Google Docs alone, but we use Teamwork for collaboration with clients, and so we definitely want to bring that into the mix. And then we use Draw.io, which is kind of a Google Docs add-on. It helps us with the flowcharts. And of course, we use ScreenFlow, which is what I'm using now to record this video. And the reason we use ScreenFlow is for processes that need some visual instruction. Maybe we need to demonstrate exactly what's happening because it's easier than writing out all the steps. So we would use that and insert that into part of our process. So the first thing I'm going to show you is our tool setup. And our tool setup starts with our Google Docs structure. And as you can see in my screen here, I have a structure set up under processes, and then I have three categories, and we pulled these categories from the departments that are described in the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS, as some of you know, and that's from the book Traction, which I will also link to. And our main departments are admin and finance, operation, and sales and marketing. And then underneath each of those departments, we have categories. So, for example, underneath admin and finance, we have accounting, communication, employee, EOS, teamwork, and so on. Underneath operations, we might have development or operations or processes that are specific to Facebook and so on. And then all of our documents, all of our processes are filed within these particular categories. So underneath accounting, for example, if I click on accounting, you'll see I have an accounting process written out in here. Some of these, for example, communications, will have a few more documents. We have our daily personal communications. We have this is my custom personalized list of everything that I need to do in the morning to clear my inbox, check in with clients, project management, so forth. I have a giant checklist for that. And then this is how we communicate as a team, the channels that we use, when to use Slack versus when to use Teamwork, and so on. So that's our structure in Google Docs. And this was the book I'm referring to. This is Traction by Gino Wickman. Again, I will link to that at the bottom of this document. And then for processes, this is Teamwork. And inside of Teamwork, what we've done is we've created a separate company project called Processes. You'll see it right here. It says Processes. And we have mirrored the category structure. If I go over here to the file section, you'll see that we have mirrored the category structure that we had in Google Docs. We had admin and finance, operation, sales and marketing. And underneath that, we have the same folder structure as in Google Docs. And there's a reason for this redundancy, and I apologize for the growling in the background. That's my dogs. The structure is redundant for a reason, because we might be looking for a document while we're already in Teamwork. And I'll also be showing you how we link that into our actual processes later. But we might be looking for it in Teamwork, but we also might be looking for it in Google Docs. So we like to mirror the structure so that no matter where we're looking for, if we know that that document is somewhere in the communications folder, we know right where to find it, whether we're in Teamwork or in Google Docs. We also have folders for drafts and pending, review, and templates. And I will kind of walk you through this entire process so you can see what these are for. But right now, real quickly, drafts. Drafts are processes that we have started, but we haven't finished. And you'll see a lot of processes in here at the moment. We have 50 at the moment, and that's because when we started this whole process, before we had an actual system to finalize all of our processes, we had lots of drafts and snippets and different things. And so we are literally going through all 50 of those documents one at a time. And we are cleaning them up and putting them into the pending review folder so that we can actually finalize it and say, yes, this process works 100%. We don't want to change anything. And then it goes into the proper category. So we have a lot of things in drafts at the moment. Things in pending review. These are documents that have been updated to fit our new format, and they are ready for team members to review and add in their approval for each document. And then the template section, we have one document in there at the moment, but I have a couple more that we're working on. And these are just templates that we would use to get started. If we know we have to create a process, there is no point in having to type in your title and add the fonts and do all that. We just start with a template, make it easier. And I will show you all of those templates as well. And then on our folder structure, one thing I would like to note is we don't go any more than 3 levels deep. We like to keep this simple. So Teamwork may have a limit on that. I'm not sure, but I've just basically said, hey, no more than 3 levels. Let's keep it easy. So here's how this works for us. We started with a document called Process for Processes. In the book, Work the System, this is called Procedure for Procedures. We like the word process, so we use Process for Processes. This is kind of like an introduction here at the top, and then some guidelines for how to structure what your process, how much is too much, how it should be written, making it simple but not too simple, and making sure that if we were to bring an outside team member in, a contractor or whatever, that they would understand exactly what tools we're using, where we're clicking, what we're writing, how to respond to clients, all that kind of stuff. So we've established some guidelines on that, and I'll give you a copy of this as well. And then underneath that, we have design and formatting. So every time we create a process, we want it formatted in a certain way. We want certain font titles. We want certain size fonts. Certain things need to be in bold. You'll notice at the bottom of each document, I have a custom footer that shows when it was created, when it was modified, how many pages it is, who reviewed it, who approved it, that sort of information. And then my formatting also includes what to do if you are inserting this information that maybe you are copy pasting for a client. So in this case, this is a template that we would be copying and sending in an email, so we want to be able to copy and paste it. So I'm showing you how to insert that as a table inside your process document so that it's separated out from the rest of the text. Also inserting an image, how to update the footer. And then the bottom section of this document is super important. This is how to submit a process for review. And this is kind of the substance of this document. The other stuff, yes, is important, but mainly it's the process for submitting your document for review, getting their team members on board to review it, making sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and then actually finalizing it and putting it into your workflow. So I will walk you through exactly how we do that. And again, I have created templates to save us time on some of these things. So let's do a quick walkthrough of the templates. The templates here, this is just a template for a process to start out. I've already got our headers filled in. I've already got numbered bullet points here ready to go. So we can just literally copy this document, create a new title. We do ask that our team members put in a process overview just so if someone is starting out, they know exactly what this process is for. And then, of course, fill in the steps. And then at the bottom, once you've created your new document, you would want to put in your initials and the date that it was created, and the rest of these get filled in when we go through our review process. So here's how this all works. Oh, one more template. We have a process workflow template, and this is just a flowchart template. And these are the colors and the objects that we would recommend that we use. A manual process, when a decision needs to be made before moving on to a different step. If it's a communication step where we need to email the client or call somebody, it's purple. And then for the create a doc is blue. And then we have an automated process, which is green. They all have different shapes, different colors to kind of help us with a visual. So if we need to create a process and it needs to have some kind of a visual so we know, just like a shortcut, we have a visual process for that and a template that we start with. So here's an example of one that we've done. It's not as pretty and color-coded, but it gives you an idea of what we do. This is our believe this is our, yeah, it's our help desk workflow. So if a client request comes in from an existing client, what do we do? How do we assess, whether this is something that falls under their monthly support versus whether this is, a bigger job and we need to get back with them with a quote, and so on and so forth. So we've got that all mapped out. So here's how this whole process works. I'm going to start out by going into a template project that I have set up. It's called Website Project Template. And in our template, we have a list of all kinds of different sub-processes, I guess you could say, sub-pieces of a project. And I'm going to start with one called adding a client to our business support plan. We're on WP Engine, so this process is specifically around getting someone onto our WordPress Engine account and setting their entire, basically onboarding them is what we're doing. So the first thing we're going to do is since this is a template project, I don't actually want to work in here. I don't want to make any assignments. I don't want to mess with this. I have everything lined out the way I want it. I have a top level item here for everybody to record their time against. And these are all the individual pieces that come into making this part happen, onboarding the client. And you'll notice each of these has a paperclip next to it. And this means that a Google Doc is attached, a process doc. So all those process docs that were created earlier are listed out here, and I'm just going to pick one. I'll say migrate site to WP Engine. If I click that paperclip, it's going to show me that I have a Google Doc process attached to that, and if I want to view that, it's going to show me these are the steps that we've written out on migrating a site to WP Engine. You can see it's filled out when it was created, who signed off on it, how many pages. And then we've inserted some visuals. There's also a link to the next process because this is a natural next step in the process. So this links to another document. So if you were working through this workflow over here, back up. If you were working through that, you would see that is indeed the next step in the process. So some of these documents do link back and forth. They cross-reference each other. So what we want to do in this case, because again, we don't want to change anything in our template, we need to copy this over to the actual client's project. So I've created a test project here. So what I'm going to do is click on the move or copy. I'm going to copy this task and I'm going to go over to my destination project, which is test project. And I'm going to put that in the onboarding list. I'm going to copy my task. And then I'm going to switch over to my test project. And here's my onboarding task. So now I can assign it to whomever. I can do whatever. It's now in the actual project where it's going to live. And if you'll notice, all of the links, all of my paperclips are still there. So if I assign this to a developer, that developer is going to be able to click on any of these paperclips and go to view on Google Docs. And boom, there they are looking at the exact instructions I need them to see for finishing that particular step in the process or completing the entire process. So that's how that works. So what we do when we're ready to actually create a new process, let me back up here a little bit. When we're actually ready to create a process, what we do is we go over here to the template. We create a copy of it. Let's see here. I'll kind of do this one on the fly. Let's see, make a copy, we'll call it copy, I'm gonna leave it in the process folder for the moment. And you'll see it's called copy of a template for a process, blah, blah, blah. We can give it a new name. I can't even spell my own name. There we go. And the next step will be going back to the processes folder, going over to the file section. Oops, we're already in the file section. And we go over here to File Integrations, and this is a Google Doc, so we choose Google Drive. And you'll see there's my process right there. I'm going to check that and link it in. And it's going to ask me what category. I'm going to put this in, whoops, not the drafts. I'm going to pretend that I've already filled this out completely. It's ready to rock and roll, so I'm going to put an independent review file and add that in there. Okay, so the next step is to set up a task for each of my team members to review a process. So the way I do this is I go over here to my template, I copy the title of it, I go back over to the processes section, I create a new task, I call it finalize because I'm the owner of it, paste it in there, And then I use the paperclip here to select from existing files. I've already uploaded it, so I can just choose it from the list. And then I can assign it to myself, because I'm the owner, and save my changes. Then what I would do is I would create a subtask for anybody on my team that needs to review it. Same process. I would just create a task for them. You can actually do this really quickly if you have a large team in teamwork by adding multiple people at once and attaching the file. And now my team will get a reminder. They can then, as you can see up here, they can log their time against the task. They can also click on that paperclip to jump directly to the document and do the review. So how a review works, for example, I will just jump over to my template that I made. And actually, I'm going to need to do this with someone else's document. So I will jump over to this one here. And I'm going to click View on Google Drive. Now, this is if I were, this is not very much in here, but that's okay. When I go to review this, or any of my team members go to review a document that I've created, we don't want to just go in and start changing things all crazy. We need to have some history behind it. We need to justify why we're changing it. I do say if it's just a minor typo or whatever, just change it. But if we're making a suggestion, for example, we don't like the way something is written or worded, or we think it's missing a step or whatever, so I'm just going to pretend that we're missing a step between 2 and 3. What I would do is I go up here to the editing, and I change this to suggesting mode. And what this does is this allows me to make edits to the document without actually changing anything that's originally there. So in this case, I'm going to add in step 3, and I'm just going to say, hey, we're missing step 3. And what it's going to do is going to put my text in green here, and it's going to show that, hey, I added this step. So when Jared, my developer who comes back in and reviews this later, it's going to say, hey, Gretchen added that it's missing step 3. Oh, she's right. I'm going to approve that. And what Jared's going to do is he's going to click this checkbox to accept my suggestion, and then it will become part of the finalized document. And you can do this to like delete stuff. If I actually hit delete on this, it's just going to mark it out. But Jared will be able to see what it is I removed. And then he can also approve that suggestion as well. So I will undo this so Jared doesn't wonder what the heck happened to his document. But that is how we review a document, so that we are all on board with what the other person has changed. And let's say that Trina is coming in to look at this document later. She will also be able to see my changes, because my changes will be in a different color. And she'll be able to say, okay, I agree with that. Or she might even go in and say, hey, no, I think step 3 needs to have some sub-bullets, A, B, and C, to really define that particular step. So it's a way we can all collaborate on setting this up. And again, that's going up here and just turning on the suggesting mode in Google Docs. And then once a document is approved by the owner of the document, we go back over here to the processes. So let's up here say finalize process for processes. That's actually done. Everybody has approved that because all their tasks or subtasks have already been checked off. So this one's all good to go. So then what I do, I would log my time if I had any time of cleaning up the document or anything like that. I would log my time, and I would check off my task, but then I need to make sure that the document itself goes into the right folder. It wouldn't sit in the file section. We wouldn't leave it sit in pending review. It needs to actually go into the correct process. So what I would do is I would then drag my process. Let's, for the moment, pretend that it's this one. I would drag that into whichever folder that it belongs in. So if it's an accounting document, I drag it over into accounting. Now I have it in the right folder. It should already be in the correct folder on Google Drives if we're doing this right, but that is our process. Now, in the future, if I need to actually make changes to this process, say we change software or something major happens, or we decide that, hey, we're doing a redundant step here, we can make this more efficient. What we do is we go through this exact same process. We would take this process out of the system here. We would drop it into pending review, and we would go through that exact same process. We would set up a task, let everybody know, hey, we need to review this process, maybe even leave a note in the task that says, hey, we've updated this because we've changed software. and then let everybody review. And when we review a document, one thing I should have noted, as soon as I review a document, for example, I'll go back to mine. As soon as I review a document, I'm supposed to add my initials to it saying, hey, I reviewed this, I approved it, so I would add my initials to there. I would also, when I create the document, add my initials as the creator of the document. I would put in the date, and then the date last modified being the date that you created it, and then approved by. Now, if we were editing this because we changed a process, we would then just change the last modified date. Everybody would still need to approve it again with the reviewed by, but that's basically the system for making sure that everybody is aware of the changes in the process, and the document has been updated for future reference. So that's it for my system on how to set up processes with Google Docs and Teamwork. I will be attaching a file or linking to a file that has all of my notes, which includes links out to the books that I reference, the software that I'm referencing, and also links to some of these template documents if you would like to copy them and use them for your own. I hope this was helpful. Again, my name is Gretchen. You can find me at leftrightlabs.com, and I'm happy to answer questions if you have them. Feel free to just post a comment on whatever medium this gets posted to. Thanks a lot.